Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Danielle here, and today I want to talk about cultural assumptions around online education. So the reason I'm talking about this is I'm here in the US. I've been here for a little over a year now, got stuck because of the pandemic, but I had been living and teaching in East Asia for many years before getting stuck here, and I've been teaching online for 4.5 of those years, and I'm noticing a big difference in between what I'm seeing here and also things that I heard when I was traveling in Europe a couple years ago, and what I know to be true in the beliefs of a lot of East Asians when it comes to education, specifically online education. So what I hear a lot in the United States, and what I definitely heard when I was in Europe when I told people that I was teaching online, was that, oh, you can't take classes online, kids can't learn online, it's much better to be in a classroom. And while being in a classroom is really good, and I would never say that when it's safe and convenient that we should be going into a classroom environment, because there are so many tangential benefits to being in there, there is nothing wrong with learning online too. What I notice is that in East Asia, most people tend to be very open to the idea of taking online classes. They put education in such a high regard, they value it so much that any opportunity to learn something new or from an excellent teacher, no matter where they are, they're going to take it. They will find the money and they will take the class because they want the opportunity to learn. And what I notice in the United States, especially around the pandemic, is we want to get kids back in school as soon as possible. And while I agree that would be ideal to be able to go back into school, if you're thinking that online learning is somehow inferior to in-person learning, I want to challenge that idea. And the reason I want to challenge it is because often when I hear people say that online learning is inferior, what I'm hearing is that they don't understand how to make online learning effective. I've made one video specifically about why online learning is attractive in East Asia. I'll link that below. I also made another video about how to focus an online class. I'll link that one too. Today I want to talk about these assumptions about why somebody might think online learning is just not effective, or couldn't be effective, or wouldn't be as effective as in-class learning. So one thing I hear is that it's not stimulating enough. Well, if it's not stimulating enough, definitely go back to the video on focus. The problem is probably that you don't have enough fullness in your life, or you're not getting enough physical activity in your life to make you able to sit through the class and be able to handle the online learning for the length of time that you need to do it. So if you have a 1 hour, 2 hour class and that's too hard for you to sit through, you're gonna wanna think about, am I comfortable? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough physical activity? Am I eating well? Do I have fun things that I like to do outside of this 2 hour window, so that way when I have to sit here for 2 hours, it's tolerable? So you wanna think about things like that. Another thing is that, you know, in line with it not being stimulating, is it's just not that interesting. What I would argue is that in the United States, we got thrust into having to teach online, and most of the teachers who are doing this don't have that kind of experience. They're not curriculum designers for an online environment. They're probably not even curriculum designers. They're just taught to teach in a classroom, physical classroom environment. They haven't had specific instruction on how to do it effectively online. If you don't have that training, how can you expect someone to be effective in that role? So it's not necessarily the computer or the screen that's the problem, it's that the delivery of it wasn't designed to be effective. It was done in a very quick, slap together way. The people putting it together never had the training because it was never expected of them So how could you expect them to be highly effective offering that training? And that, we also want to think about like screens in general in this day and age. They're often used to pacify kids. So, if we want our kids to sit down and calm down, pre-pandemic, you went to a restaurant and you didn't want your kids to be rude. What'd you do? You probably gave them a screen to look at. And if that was effective, to think that that same screen couldn't be effective at delivering an educational tool just doesn't make sense. So what we want to do is think about how can we make the online materials that we're offering attractive to the student, so that way it will hold their focus and they will be interested and that they will stay engaged. The screen itself isn't the problem, it's what is going on in the design, in what's being put on the screen, that's the problem. And that doesn't mean people can't develop skills, because we give teachers and people in all kinds of jobs ongoing training all the time. It is absolutely a skill that can be learned and developed, and over time you can become excellent at it. So I wouldn't want to assume that the screen is the problem, because most likely it's not. It's probably other factors in the environment and the fact that we had to quickly throw something together to get something delivered to the student. In addition, I think usually like grandparents and older people might have more of a bias toward an in-class learning environment. That makes sense. That's what they grew up with. That's what they're familiar with. And maybe younger parents are more open to the idea of an online style of learning. And that would make a lot of sense to me too, because, things have changed and how quickly younger people tend to be at adapting to new models and ways of doing things, and how older people tend to be more set in their ways. But that doesn't mean, again, that you should think that an online class wouldn't be effective. What it does mean is that if you don't think it could be effective, that you might have more of a bias. And it might help to be more open-minded and creative in trying to figure out what would work. So all that to say, and I know some people are probably going to feel bad listening to that, but that's been my experience. Like, for example, I've been teaching kids in East Asia online for 4.5 years. I've only had one kid fall asleep in a class, and that kid was, I'm pretty sure, pretending to be asleep. She was 5 years old, and her parents signed her up to take a class, which was an assessment, a test, at 9:30 at night. And so I believe she was tired, and I also believe she was pretending to be asleep to get out of taking her test. But in teaching over 4,000 classes online, that's the only time I've had a kid show like clear signs of being disengaged. So if you've got a curriculum that is designed to engage in an online format, you're just not going to run into these problems, or many of them. And if you still do, then you want to think about what else is going on with the student or the learner that is preventing them from being able to sit and hold focus for a couple of hours. So I'll leave you there with that. Please leave any comments you have to share below. I'll try to be as helpful as possible, but again, I want to challenge you to think, if you hold this bias that it's not effective to teach online, to examine why you hold that bias and to reflect and think maybe it's a bias and not a reality. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.